All right, hello and welcome to Crew Call with the Scooters. I am so honored to have my guest and our guest here today with us. I have Rabbi Morty Rudolph and Rivki Rudolph. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Pleasure. Glad to be here.
And you founded the Pittsburgh chapter of the Friendship Circle back in 2006 and kind of started and grew and have grown that. Why don't you give us a little background on what the Friendship Circle is and the mission behind that?
All right. So we're a community organization. We happen to practice excellent inclusion. So we have a really wide range of individuals and members, as we call them, that are part of the Friendship Circle activities. And what we really aim to do is give people all different types of social opportunity and leadership training opportunity, primarily youth. So kids like middle school, high school, grade school. We do have an adult program, but it's for the time being entirely alumni based. And really just kind of level the playing field for everybody to appreciate and have access to the different types of programs and leadership training opportunities that we have. And we've met some really cool people along the way and done some really cool things together. So that's kind of what we do. And then a wide range of different activities that happen under that.
I was going to ask, what are some of like the bigger events or bigger programs that kind of come from there?
So we have like a whole club series where our members can sign up for different activities. There would be like a cooking club, a bowling league, there's a yoga club, there's wellness, there's, obviously everything looks a little different now, which I'm sure we'll get into,
yes.
Given the pandemic, but all different types of really just very specific opportunities for just interacting and having a great time together. Like I said, in a very inclusive setting with opportunities for everybody to contribute. And then we have things like our teen leadership board, where they'll have opportunities to advocate for different things that they feel passionate about. They go through like a training program where we bring in speakers on topics that they're interested in, such as the history of the disability rights movement or just understanding human diversity. And we've had some really cool discussions around that. Our middle school program does like a Kids Who Care kind of giving back activity where they'll come up with ways to really actively participate in community. And we'll have discussions there around like, what does it mean to be kind in 2020? Yeah. And what does it mean to participate as an active member of the community when you're in 6th grade?
Right.
And I think that, so much of what we do at Friendship Circle is really role modeling and being community members together. And so much of that is making sure that we're only a strong community if it's a place that everybody can participate and not just belong, but contribute to as well. So, all of our programs have that at its core. So if we're cooking, everybody is cooking. It's not just one person, demonstrating. Everyone's around the table, sleeves rolled up, either sitting, standing, whatever they're comfortable with, and making this recipe together. Our teen leadership board will have met. There's a host committee for every event. So there's kids who plan, whether it's the recipes or the activities, and they're the ones that have practiced it together with our staff prior to the event, done like a quick demo on it, and then we'll go and present to their friends and the other members at the actual activity. So those are just like,
right.
I kind of went from very general to very specific pretty quickly there.
Yeah, that's good.
But just to give you an idea of like how it's always a great time, but one of the things that we always ask our staff and our teen leaders is, what makes this a Friendship Circle event? Like, that's great that we're cooking and we have really cool recipes and we're giving out all the Friendship Circle swag with it, but like, what makes this, a different type of bowling league or different type of cooking club or a different type of gymnastics club? And that's kind of what I think makes those are the things that drive, the experiences that make our organization and the experiences that we offer unique and cool in our community.
We also like to give the visual of like how like Friendship Circle is kind of like this versus like this. So it's not like there's, where one would kind of think of, particularly because of, inclusion being kind of our core and relating to the disability community, there's like this element of this essentially that exists, and it's easy to do in a visual interview. Certainly more so than on the phone. But so the idea is that everyone's kind of giving and gaining from it together, and every activity should have that, so that it's not like, you're a typical kid from a typical school and you're coming to Friendship Circle because you're a great volunteer and helping other less fortunate people than you are. That's not what this is about. This is about everyone coming and everyone giving into the circle and everyone gaining from it. And so whether it's a specific event that again, that same typical team may show up at and feel like, I'm just not feeling myself today, and having someone to talk to and having someone who's going to actually listen to them, or somebody who may kind of be less prone to kind of socializing, and kind of being involved in the community. Everyone gains from it, and that's how we kind of look at each program, that nothing should be in a way of kind of that fishbowl effect, if you will.
Absolutely. And let me get a little bit about your backgrounds and what made you want to, start this, or, kind of grow this. It's been around for it was the 15th year.
Right.
So, what's that inspiration behind that?
So I'll dive in first.
We both have our favorite answers for this.
Right.
That's good. I like it.
Fortunately, it kind of like resonated with both of us together. And again, we talked about it, like we're the Pittsburgh chapter. And so we were able to kind of hear about the rough model of Friendship Circle from other cities. And we had just married and were kind of looking for a bit of a career path together. We were both pretty young when we married. So Rifki had been teaching. I had just been ordained as a rabbi, and we saw ourselves kind of coming, involving ourselves in the community. We're both from Pittsburgh. Figured this would be a great place to come and do that. And looking for like specific projects or initiatives, we had heard about this Friendship Circle concept, went to a conference, and really, I would say, went kind of reluctantly. We were kind of thinking like, we don't really know anyone with disabilities. It's not like it's a passion of ours. Fine, if there's a need for it and there's a model that exists, that kind of makes it easy. But like, why would this be something that we should necessarily get involved in? And when we went to this conference, I think it kind of like dawned on both of us, and again, fortunately simultaneously, that this is not about disabilities. And as I said, this is really about enhancing a community overall. And if you're from a community, or you have those kind of connections within a community, it's about making that whole community better. And yes, it's about making it more inclusive. Yes, it's about involving people with disabilities. But it's really about, you're going to speak to everyone in involvement in Friendship Circle. It's not about, do you have a child with a disability? Great, you can participate in our program. It's like, are you a single man in his 50s? You can participate in our program too, and you could be part of what Friendship Circle is all about. And that's really kind of what resonated with us. And also, I would say at the same time, was when we started thinking about that and hearing about it, it was like really, again, kind of like speaking to what we had our initial reluctance and hesitation was that, yes, we don't really know anyone with disabilities quite well, but that's a fault. And that's the reason why this is important. And that's the reason why we need to be the ones to kind of push this out there, because realistically, until someone takes that leap, until someone kind of bridges that gap and ensures that it's not just, people with disabilities, their advocates, their family members, their neighbors, and then there's everyone else, then we're just still going to be on two different islands. And we need to be able to bridge that gap. And I think that we were able to kind of start it out of the Jewish community, particularly because at the time there was a lot of talk about how this wasn't a priority in the Jewish community. And we were kind of cautioned about that like, just so you can get involved in this, but the interest really just isn't there. And in the last 15 years, we've seen that change dramatically. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that people were just much more exposed than they used to be. And if you speak to someone about an abstract concept and tell them that they should, you really need to support this because it's a real issue, but I don't see it, it doesn't resonate with me, and it's foreign, then like, oh, okay, sure, I appreciate your work, good luck with that. But if it's something that I know now, that I'm exposed to, that it's more intimate to me, I now have this natural inclination towards it. And that's what we've seen. And that was kind of the impetus, I think, for both of us, was that like, we grew up with this, love for your fellow man was something that we always knew, but yet everyone, our circles, our friends, were all kind of like us.
That's incredible.
Do you want to answer that?
think you covered most of it.
tried to speak
I would just
easy.
emphasize, yeah, you got my perspective in there too. Just that exactly, it was exactly the reasons that we didn't think it was for us that really propelled us into like, we got to do this, you know, and that, like Morty just said, having been raised with that notion of, you know, we're all in this together and you need to, you know, love your man as your fellow as yourself and respect one another. And those were all great concepts. And we weren't really given hands-on opportunities to practice them at a young age. And that's really personally what got me very excited about it is, you know, having grown up as a teenager in the community and having had mandatory community service hours, we call them chesed hours in the school that I went to, it's Hebrew for kindness. We were always doing things that were expected of us almost because like we had the upper hand and we needed to help somebody else, but I wasn't really seeing the long, you know, and I felt great about it, you know, that I was able to do something for somebody else, but was it changing me as a person? And was it changing the landscape of the community around me, or was I really helping to, like I said earlier, level the playing field for everybody? And that it's great that I was able to help somebody, but was I learning about myself from that experience? Or what was I, you know, how was I, what difference was I really making? And again, we talk to teens and high school kids all the time about, you know, growing up to make the world a better place. But this idea that like right now we can give someone an opportunity to participate in change and like real tangible change they can see on a day-to-day basis. And that opportunity to feel really good about themselves because of what they're a part of, you know, got me really excited. And I think that's what Morty was speaking to when he said that, you know, it's not about, you know, while it's very much including the individuals with the disabilities, it's not what it's centered around. It's centered around everybody participating and everybody contributing and recognizing that there's space for everybody to learn and grow together. But still, when we started, it was still very much like a, you know, we'll do this on the side kind of thing. We'll see what happens. The response was really just, for me, overwhelming in seeing how much of an impact it had on the individuals that were a part of that. We started out really just pairing friendships together. I would meet a teenager who wanted to like volunteer. We don't use the term anymore, volunteering, but they would sign up to like volunteer their time to be a friend to someone who had a harder time making friends, typically someone with a disability. And I would pair them together and we had like at-home visits and I would do kits and make little activities for them and introduce them. And we really was kind of just setting up like play dates and the families were starting to get to know each other. And at the end of that, it was probably about a full year, like school year, where I was making these little matches of families and friends and teens, like with and without disabilities, and recognizing that if they had that point of connection, the rest of it kind of happened organically as a friendship should, that there was so much more opportunity to kind of bring this into the greater community. And without even bringing it, it was becoming a community. And we took that first year, we took them to Kennywood, which is every Pittsburgher's favorite place.
Yes, absolutely.
And someone actually sponsored a school bus, which was very exciting for us because like it made us feel real official that like it wasn't just like meet at the park at this time. He was like, take everyone on a bus, let them feel like, you know, this is like a group. And actually that was like such a pivotal moment for us as an organization because that's exactly what it did. It took these 10 different groups of friends and made us like a group, and we were like, wow, we have a community that we're all a part of that we all built together.
And I think, you know, that actually is a good point because it speaks a lot to like the idea of like really listening. And like, that's when I say it, like Pittsburgh's friendship circle, like we're able to kind of like make those tweaks, and we were young and we are still kind of young in terms of like flexibility and adaptability and being able to just like kind of shift with things. And like, so we had this whole plan going for us to go to Kennywood at the time. And I had lunch with this fellow and he's like, you know, we used to do company picnics and stuff to Kennywood. And, you know, I feel like when you take a bus, it makes everyone feel like a group. And I was just like, that's a great idea. Let's do that. And it was like, it wasn't like this like big committee discussion. It was just like a very casual conversation. And
then we actually had someone else sponsor t-shirts.
Right.
Oh, wow.
And then it's become a thing. Like we come with a t-shirt off the bus, like so you're part of the squad, you're in.
Yep.
And it's become a thing after that, like every year, what color are the Kennywood t-shirts?
Oh.
So we were just completely locked in at that point.
Right.
And then from there, like I really started to think about the organization more as like, you know, something we knew was grassroots, but just very much about, you know, let's grow with our community. Let's see what everyone's interested in, and what are the things that will we can put into place so that everybody who participates and joins Friendship Circle has that sense of belonging and purpose. And that's where we grew into, offering different opportunities for people to sign up and join and connect. And that's kind of the story of how it started and grew.
And from an organizational perspective, it was like, again, we were young and I didn't really have very much organizational experience. And, we were fortunate to kind of put together a small board of folks who really could help get it off the ground from a fundraising perspective, kind of getting our feet wet in the foundation community a little bit. We hired a PR firm at the time to kind of help us. What was interesting was originally it was to help us kind of spread the word about what Friendship Circle is, because again, Rifki was doing it very grassroots, but we wanted to just like kind of have a press release and an elevator pitch and those kinds of more official things. And we look back at it at that time, and we spent a good year or two with this PR person, and it was more kind of giving us a little bit of a professional mindset than it was. Obviously it did some work in terms of the actual public relations aspect, but it was more about just getting ourselves in more of that professional mindset, because otherwise it's like you're just kind of like this startup mentality. You go to work, you come home, you're not like, you're
also,
just kind of
and it helped us to give our members and participants the sense of well, it's nice to be have these new friendships, and that was kind of the reason they were joining, to be able to be a part of something like a high quality program was really important to us. And that was something from the start, and it probably was initiated during one of those conversations. It was always important for us that this should be if they're coming to the Friendship Circle holiday party, it should be have the best entertainment and the best refreshments, and it shouldn't just be the holiday party for the folks who aren't included in the other holiday party. This should be the holiday party that everybody is included in, and top experience as well, and obviously within a budget, but
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's incredible that you were able to kind of form that, and it seemed like it happened pretty quickly too.
Yeah, I mean, obviously in the beginning when, our fundraising efforts were just starting out too, like it would be, very, homemade pasta, but let's make sure we have a Starbucks carrier there. So we kind of just to make sure that everybody felt like this was something that we was important to be a part of.
And it was funny. I remember at that conference, we talked to the fellow who founded the Friendship Circle in Michigan, which was the original Friendship Circle. And he told us, and I still remember this because it was very impactful, certainly when we were trying to get this off the ground. He said, in Friends at Home is one of our core programs that we facilitate basically like at-home visits. And they're friendships. I mean, they're play dates that we facilitate just to kind of keep them organized and keep them on the calendar. But it was our initial program that kind of helped us get it all started until we started like these Kennywood and group events and such. But and it was always the core program. So when he was talking to folks who were thinking about starting a Friendship Circle, the first program he's going to talk to you about is Friends at Home. And it's something that, again, exists in every other city, essentially. And he said, I had two fears when we started Friends at Home visits. He said, my one fear is I'm going to meet a guy who I know does Friends at Home with a child or whatever. And I'm going to meet him walking down the street and say, hey, Danny, do you still do Friends at Home with your friend Sam? And my one fear is he's going to say, Sam, I haven't visited him in years. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, that's my one fear. He said, my second fear is that I say, hey, Danny, are you still meeting with your friend Sam from Friendship Circle? And he's going to say, Sam, I see him every week, but what's Friendship Circle? I don't know what that is. And so, it's just kind of like, and obviously not to make it kind of completely company related, but it's like, there was an element of like, if we're going to grow this as an organization, it needs to have that feel of like, you're part of something. You're not just, oh, it's Morty and Rifki and they started this nice thing and it's really cute and we get together and, it's an initiative.
Right. You're part of an organization. Well, that's incredible. So now, with this last year being COVID and, the connections had to probably completely change. I don't know if that shifted to virtual or how that, I'm sure that was difficult trying to figure all of that out with that connection. And then I want to lead into something that's incredible, that you're now sourcing the clear masks in terms of that. And I want to talk to you about why that was important, which I think is great, but how, people who may have a disability, how that really is, helpful for them and helps their trajectory moving forward.
So I'll speak more to kind of the COVID shift, and then if you can kind of get into the masks and maybe. But it's interesting to kind of juxtapose the first the beginning of Friendship Circle when we started and now this past year, because I think there are a lot of things that we were able to take from those early years and utilize now. And I say that because there was like this, this very much kind of, you're running off the seat of your pants. There was no real strategy. It wasn't like we, kind of sat down and said, okay, mapping out which programs and how many staff we have to have. It's like, it's just us. We're out of our house. And, if someone says, oh, well, you guys should do art, we'll do art, and it wasn't a whole lot of thought that went into it. And obviously over the years, it did obviously become much more kind of strategic, but that was good because it felt like it was something that was really necessary as we pivoted, in March of last year. And that was really, just to be able to we had it in kind of, we'll always remember it, but we had an event scheduled for the first Sunday when things started to shut down, and the event was a bowling event, and we knew that either the bowling place would be open or not, or we probably wouldn't be able to do it. So we kind of huddled our staff that Friday and said okay,
probably a little too closely, in hindsight.
So we said guys, this event's not going to happen. Our members and our families and our mission is as crucial as ever, and if not more so, because we can't look at this and say well, no one needs us right now. Let's wait, let's sit this out. Let's wait a little bit and hopefully it'll blow over, which many people did think would happen at the time. We kind of said to ourselves, we're just going to have to, maybe that will happen. And maybe down the line, we'll be able to kind of sit tight for a little bit while this passes. But as of right now, our priority needs to be to ensure that our members remain connected. And if we had an event on Sunday that was supposed to happen at Zone 28, and it's now not happening, we need to replace that with something that's safe and exciting for our members. And maybe not as exciting, and maybe it's going to be a little different, but we're going to do our best. And again, we obviously don't have a whole lot of time to think about it. We can't send out surveys and ask people what their preferred platform is for a potential virtual event. Which we did eventually. Again, we went kind of, as we did over the last 15 years. But it gave us that okay, we're going to have something, and everyone download Zoom onto your, phones or iPads,
vote,
whatever.
Zoom or Google Meets.
Yeah.
And that was it. And so it gave us kind of that, quick, again, when I referred to that adaptability, it gave us some of that, we kind of were able to jump back into that. And it wasn't it took us months to be able to shift. We were, very bent on getting it changed right away. And so we did that. We shifted into virtual. We've since tweaked that and made that a kind of better platform in terms of we do activity kits for every event. We have pickup and bag drop off.
Great, yeah.
It goes on at our building, and so there are at least those connections that get made, and those kind of personal kind of touches, for lack of a better word, really are just so important. It feels like, especially today, and then we moved into drive-through events. We call them hybrid. Hybrid in-person events where they're kind of in-person but drive-through, drive-in, not as socially distant. But anyway, that's
incredible though.
He's not as involved in the programming aspect as I am, so it's just funny to hear him explain everything. You did a great job.
Thanks.
Well said.
But anyway, so that's where we were, and then as things kind of got a little, as that numbers went up and there was a little bit more of a danger in the last month or two, we've kind of peeled back on that a little bit, hopefully starting up again. So that's kind of how the general programming has gone from my sense.
That's good though. I mean, that's good that you're able to shift and kind of, adjust accordingly to keep those connections going, which I'm sure is very important for everyone, both sides of the friendship. So, and would love to hear about the clear mass, where that came from and what you've seen.
The only thing I would add on to your very comprehensive overview of our virtual programs is just that, in making the shift, I think that one thing that, for better or for worse, that our staff had the advantage was in that, so being socially isolated, and that idea of having to break down barriers to bring people together for friendship was not something that's new to Friendship Circle or to the demographic that we serve, or for the individuals that are a part of that. And that's something that we're always trying to think about, that okay, these two people communicate differently, so how are we going to make sure they still have a really great time doing this activity together? And I think that was just, something that served us well, and having to think about, okay, now we can't, bowl at Zone 28, but we're still going to have a great Sunday activity. What's that going to look like? So I think that's something that's, important to know. And the same idea, recognizing from the get-go that this is not something, like Morty said, that we had, any time to lose on. That friendship, we know, is important because that's what we're about. Connection is important. And for the same reason that we were getting together on Sunday because we value friendship, we're going to make sure that we're getting together next Sunday as well, even if it has to be in a different way. And our staff has really, as you heard, been very creative and innovative in coming up with some of those different ways to connect. So the Clear masks.
Yeah.
I got this?
Go for it.
All right. So just not a very long story, but it just, it was before we realized how long we were going to be wearing masks for. And it was still kind of funny to see someone wearing a mask, and we were all trying to figure out if we should make them out of socks or if we should spend the $8 and buy the real one, or send whatever it was to buy a pack of disposable ones. Friendship circles were talking about producing, as we like to do, friendship circle masks. We put the friendship circle, everyone loves the FC swag, whether it's on a shirt or a t-shirt, a sweatshirt, whatever it is. We were going to print them on the friendship circle. We were going to print friendship circle on the masks to give out, whether it was at our drive-through events or other activities. And I was participating in one of these group orders, and I came across an article that I think I just came across it, that talked about how I think in the headlines, I think it was a New York Times article that led to a few different blog posts that I just kind of went down a rabbit hole and was like, oh my goodness, mind blown. That the headline was that, mask wearing poses new barrier for those that are hard of hearing, new communication barrier. And I looked at that, I was just kind of stuck there because I was like, how did I not think of this? Oh my goodness, of course, for people who rely on lip reading and
yes.
And that's something that, they have to think about all the time already. This one effort that the entire world was trying to do to keep everyone safe and healthy was now a communication barrier. And the fact that didn't occur to more people, or the fact that it hadn't occurred to me, who I think spends most of my day trying to figure out how to make sure that everything that we do is more accommodating, made me realize how most people probably, unless you're experiencing this specific disability, you're not thinking about what the impact is on other people. So I kept reading, and then came across this one student at a university who said, one possible solution would be, providing a mask with a window to the lips. And then that was oh, cool, mind blown again.
Yeah.
And I'm forwarding it to our professional advisor at the time. So immediately I sent a message to our team, hold on mask production. I am not, better don't go out than have to be talking to someone who's not understanding you.
Right.
I said, I kind of stopped that. And then, I remember sending to Laura Marshak, who's been our professional advisor from the start. And we talked to her a lot about, inclusion related things. And I was talking to her specifically about this issue that had come up. And I remember forwarding it to her oh, this is one possible solution, to Clear masks. And people were kind of making them out of their homes still. Someone was making them. And then it was an Etsy thing. And then you had to get someone to make you 20 of them. It was going to take 3 weeks until they got there. Anyway, I got very, I was perseverating on the fact that we cannot put out friendship circle masks unless they also have the ones that have, in some way either have the window or something. So that's really the story of how it happened. And then I ended up, Morty's was connected with someone else who was connected.
Who again, early on, wanted to get into masks, and he said, we should talk to Aquipa company, that make the head coverings, the Jewish head coverings.
Oh, right.
He said we should talk to them because they're probably not going to be selling as many kippahs, nearly as many events or bar mitzvahs and whatever.
Right.
And it should be a natural transition for them to be able to make masks. And again, this was kind of early, so people weren't really thinking in that way. It was more yeah, whatever, we'll hold these for a little while and eventually they'll pass. And so he kind of helped push us into it. We were connected with someone Rifki grew up with here, who started a kippah company in New York. And so that kind of helped it all align, and she started making them. And so of course we had the opportunity there to kind of make what was not just kind of the clear masks, but clear masks that were, nice looking and had an aesthetic.
Yeah. So before we approached her, so this guy who wanted to sponsor Masks Friendship Circle, we said, great. That's very kind of you to sponsor Mask Friendship Circle. Are you willing to wait until we figure out how to get a clear mask made? And then one of the moms of a Friendship Circle member here who happens to work with individuals in the deaf community did some trial and error, some troubleshooting, and they tested out different materials. And, I found out some interesting things just around, how the things that I wouldn't have thought of otherwise, just in terms of like how wide the window needed to be and the importance of it going down to your chin, covering your chin rather than, too wide on your cheeks. And, those are all, there's the term nothing about us without us, like so important here, because if you're really trying to create something that works for everyone, ask everyone, or specifically the people who are going to be using it. And so, like Morty said, I was in touch with Dina Seawald, who's a co-owner of Aquipa, based out of New York, who our kids wear the kippas, the head coverings that Morty's referring to, and like Aquipa is like the very cool kippa brand, and they make all the funky patterns, and like that's the kids collect them and go to school, and now I got this one, and I got the superhero one. So we figured if we're going to make these masks, of course they have to be really cool masks that everyone wants to wear, not just because they're trying to be inclusive, but because they look really cool too. So we chose we chose some really cool designs with them. We did like a purple tie-dye and an army print, and just, they were very helpful and very accommodating in terms of that design. And then of course we put a little FC decal on, and that's kind of how they were born. And then, because Mark Tobias, who was the one donating them to us, he said, I want you guys to sell them so that I know your fundraiser was canceled in the spring. So this would be, an added fundraising effort. And a lot of Friendship Circle moms got on board and helped spread the word about it. And, one person's friend spread it to all of her friends who happens to be an OT, and she made sure that all the occupational therapists that she works with are now using these. And then it ended up spreading to teachers who, I sent them a whole pack of them with my kids when they finally started school. And that, part of what came out of this, and this is the beauty of universal design, is that yes, we're accommodating a specific need for people who rely on lip reading as a form of communication, but facial expression and being able to read people's lips for other reasons or see people smile really benefits everybody. And elderly population who may not even realize how much they rely on lip reading. This is something that really can be used all around. And that was just something that was very important to me, having had that experience, that this was one thing that Friendship Circle stands for, is including everybody all the time. And if it works for the people who have the most complex needs, someone who's on our board and also an FC parent, Carol Tavis, always says that if you make sure to accommodate those with the most complex needs, then everybody will always be accommodated all the time. And that you're not having to, it's wonderful to be able to create something and then, take 5 steps back and say like, okay, and how do we include this person, this person, and this person? But if you think about everyone from the get-go, then, what a wonderful world we'd live in. So, so that was kind of like the story of the masks. And of course they have, some, as is any production, they fog up sometimes, so we troubleshoot. That was one of the things that we did some research on with the material, but we found that if you apply a little bit of baby soap or a little bit of shaving gel, or they don't work as well, but in a pinch, you can just use we give everyone a little pack of the screen wipes. Just wipe out the inside, before I send the kids to school with them, I just wipe out the inside daily with a little bit of baby soap, just like you would kind of clean a window every morning, and send them off. And that helps a little bit with the fogging. I wouldn't recommend exercising in them or doing full speech in them, but for your runs and your errands, and whenever you can use them. It doesn't have to be your all-day mask, but whenever you can make an effort to be using them, you never really know who's going to benefit from you wearing it. And no one likes wearing masks anyway, so we may as well, if we're wearing them, help everybody out, in addition to obviously the obvious health reasons for wearing it.
No, that's great. And it's like you said, it's inclusion, people who probably you don't even realize who might need that extra, being able to see the mouth and everything. No, I think that's incredible. And you guys are learning and adjusting as you go, which is even better. Let me ask you this question. if we want to, we always put out there, if someone was interested in maybe volunteering or being part of the Friendship Circle, how would they do so? And if someone wanted to purchase a mask, is there a website, or what would be the best way?
On our website, there's a masks tab and there's
Okay.
a member tab, and you would just fill out an interest form if you're interested in participating in some way, and we'll get in contact with you to figure out how best you can fit into our circle. And then for the masks, there's just a simple order form on there. You can choose what you want, and then we can either deliver or pick up in Squirrel Hill.
That's great. Well, thank you both so much for everything that you're doing.
Our website is fcpgh.org too. So.
Got it. Yes, absolutely. We will put that on there. And
Okay, great.
like I said, we appreciate all of the work that you're doing for the community, and, keep it up. And if there's anything that we can do, we appreciate you being here with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. See ya.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.